Hello. Moving sucks.
But at least the stories don't.
Listen to our pain.
And enjoy. Hey, Chanel.
Hello, Cindy.
You ready to talk about moving?
I guess.
Ooh, good. So, when did you move? How often have you moved? Actually, let's start there. How often have you moved?
I was a wee lass when I last moved. It was a long time ago, a very, very long time ago, in which I was a child.
2 years ago?
No, I moved out when I was 17.
For the first time. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Go on, continue.
You don't know my life. You don't know everything about me.
But I'm sorry.
How dare you? So, yeah, I was 17 when I first moved out, and I moved into the college dorms. Mm-hmm. So that was extra. When did you first move out?
Same thing. 17. And it was for college. Mm-hmm. Did we start at the same time? Did you start college, or do you started in 2013?
I'm a year
right?
ahead of you, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So about the same, 17, just a year apart. But yeah. First moved out when I was 17, going to college. I was so excited. I have two brothers. Mm-hmm. So I was excited at the idea of not having to share a bathroom with boys. I don't know what your dorm situation was like, but the fact that I didn't have to share a bathroom with boys and the fact that I was away from my parents was so exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see, I originally was going to live at home completely for college, but I decided at the last minute to actually move out and go into the dorms. Oh my God. And I think it was a good experience. I think I learned a lot. I learned specifically that people are crazy. Other people are crazy. And a lot of these people out here in the streets were not raised correctly. Mm-hmm. That's what I learned.
Yikes.
That's what I learned. Because there was a whole bunch of different personalities, which is whatever. But I remember there were some characters, man. Characters. I remember one guy, he seemed like the most normal person, but you went into his room, that thing was thrashed. His roommate ended up moving out probably a semester in, and he was alone in that room. It was thrashed. And don't get me wrong, man. I am not the most tidy person. My room be a mess. I have never seen anything like that. It was insane. I'm telling you, you could not see the floor. This is a whole dorm room with two sides, right?
Oh my gosh.
You could not see the floor, and it did not smell the best in there. It smelled stale. You feel me? And he seemed like he was really struggling because he was alone, but that's another story. And then, so he's a character. There was homegirl who, whenever she drank, she would cry. She would just go and cry. And she would just walk the halls and cry.
Do you say drink?
Yes.
At 17?
I wasn't drinking at 17. But these hoes were. Not me?
Yeah, sorry. I said it like I was being sarcastic. Yeah.
Not me. I was a good child. Me? I was a good child. I absolutely not. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I'm dead serious.
Okay. I was about to say, for the record. On record, Chanel was a good child, everybody.
On record and off the record, I was a good child. So, that was not me. But she would, every time she got drunk, she would just be in the hallway crying. And we would be like, are you okay? Mm-hmm. And then there was another girl, her boyfriend broke up with her right before the second semester, and she was in the actor room just crying for weeks, and we would just walk by and be like, ugh, why are you in there crying? And then another fun thing is that our RA was in a frat, and everybody, like a good portion of our floor, ended up joining fraternities and sororities. So they were just partying. Not moi.
Isn't it kind of crazy that like when you go to a dorm, like you're moving away from your family, but like you learn that you can tolerate your family's antics more than like strangers.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. I don't know about you. Like I had a shorter fuse with like my floor mates as well as my roommate. Just because it's like you're not my family. So to me, like I don't have to tolerate you.
Yep.
Some crazy dorm stories that I will say. The one that I remember with you talking about a room being thrashed, we also had, and the person getting like kicked out, we also had an issue on my floor where someone had to get kicked out because he got so drunk. It's either he got drunk or he got really high, but he pooped in his closet.
No way.
Yeah, he pooped in his closet.
What's wrong with him?
It's one of those situations where you have freedom. I will say that the proximity of my school to off-campus apartments was really close, and you ended up getting a lot of people who went to my undergraduate university. We'll bleep it out because I don't want any cease and desist. They're a big school.
We're just gonna do a beep.
Yes, please. So let me say again, my school was really close to off-campus apartments where students could go, but since you were off campus, you didn't have to follow school policy. So there was easy access to alcohol and drugs within a 5-minute walking distance from campus. So students felt comfortable doing those things because they were so close to home, but also you don't have anybody policing you because you have no parents. Mm-hmm. So that's like my biggest thing. So moving out my first time, it was like such a culture shock just because I'm no longer with my family. So these people are doing things that I'm questioning who raised you. Do you have sense? But at the same time, you can't check these people like you can check your siblings. Like if my brothers did half the stuff that my roommates or my floor mates did to me, we'd be in an all-out brawl and it would have been squashed immediately. But I felt as though I needed to tolerate it because we're not family. And all because I have an issue doesn't mean it's going to get fixed because your RA is just 1 to 2 years older than you. They're not a parent. And who has the time to go to administration to be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Unless, of course, it's someone pooping in a closet. That's an extreme sense.
I can't believe that. That's crazy.
College was crazy. My first year was crazy. But yeah, that was my first experience. But I was living. Like, I had such a great time, mainly because my parents were very strict growing up. So I just had more freedom. My freedom just included or involved me going out late, but I was able to have my own sense of autonomy, which was amazing. Just being able to make my own rules, decorate my side of my dorm because I had to share my dorm, decorate my side of the dorm one way. I think it like set the tone for what I wanted in future places to live, as well as what I would look for in future roommates, just because this was my first time doing so.
You see, that is very nice. I don't have strict parents. So, I didn't have a curfew. I didn't have an allowance. They just gave me money type thing. So when I was out on my own in the world, it was like, it didn't feel like I had newfound freedom or anything. If anything, I feel like I felt, how did I feel? The word that comes to mind is restricted, but I think that's more from the classes and having like, I don't have my mom to cook me food. I have to go to the dorm, and if I don't, or like the dorm food situation, and if I don't go to get food by a certain time, then there's no food for me to eat. And then I didn't have my car first semester. I got my car second semester, so then I could actually like go out and about and do things. But it was a lot more like, dang, why I gotta do all this crap? And then I'm living with all these people that they were fine for the most part, but there was definitely a few people that I was like, okay, you guys are getting on my nerves. So yeah, so I would say it made me feel more restricted, but that's because my parents are cool.
But I think that's actually really interesting, though, that like that different perspective with the fact that just how our home situations were like, moving for me was liberating. And I know that you said that it not necessarily moving was restricted, but the fact that you felt more restricted because of the fact that it's like, oh, I have a set time for food. Oh, I have to deal with these people, blah, 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 blah. I think that's so interesting. How us moving out for the same thing. And it's so cool because it's like we're the same age, right? Yeah. Going to do the same thing for college, yet it's just different experiences. And do you feel as though... Oh, sorry. Go on.
Let me interrupt you, girl. You see, a lot of that freedom was a double-edged sword because I was staying up. I would wait until the last minute to write my essays and other things. And I especially the essays. The essays would always take me out. English. I would wait and wait. Oh, you have 3 months to write this essay. Probably not. You have a month to write this essay. Okay. And then I would wait until the night before. Then I would write that entire essay.
Yeah.
And I remember when I turned in my first essay. Would you like to guess what grade I got on it?
Was it below a C?
It was a D, baby. I got a D. And I definitely deserved it. But yeah, so it's things like that. I had to be mindful and actually kind of get my life together. I don't think I got my life together until probably my master's program, but
yeah,
I was trying.
Isn't it crazy though? That concept of like, you are 17 years old, you're moving out of your home, and what you're doing will set the tone for the rest of your life. Obviously, like we know now, that's not necessarily the case, but getting into school and moving out, it's like kind of jumping into the deep end. I believe that for me, I kind of had it set up pretty like cut and dry because again, my parents. But even still, it's just like it's still daunting, the fact that it's like, oh, I have to do everything on my own. Yes, I had more experience just because growing up in high school, like I had to start taking care of myself a little bit. But even still, it's just like doing all of that on top of going to classes, on top of doing homework, preparing for exams, and then also trying to live that quote unquote freedom life. I think it did have a little bit of the opposite effect for me in the sense of like, I started to realize that if I wanted to have fun, I'd have to get my work done early. So I ended up, at least in my first year, before I actually got into chemical engineering, all of my stuff was done. You probably catch me on Netflix more often than you see me working, because I would just do all of my work within the first like couple of days. Everything would be done and I'd just be relaxing for a month.
Wow.
So I guess it's the opposite.
Yeah, because I would not do any of my work, but I was still stressed all the time because I still had math. We have assignments every week. Every week. And it's always a lot of problems and stuff. So math never gives you a break. So I was always doing stuff. It's just certain classes would go to the wayside.
Right.
Yeah. So I was stressed.
But anyway, given that we were both 17 and we're not 17 now, and we don't live in we're not in college, where'd you move to next, Chanel? What was the next move?
First of all, so I moved out at 17 and I moved right back at 19. Yes, I did. Ooh. So I did first year, second year, living out and about, and then third year, fourth year, I moved back home. Was
it because of the roommate situation? Like what like caused you to move back home?
It was mostly like not wanting to find another apartment, not wanting to spend the money for another apartment. And I lived like 30, 45 minutes away from school, so I could drive pretty easily. So
yeah, that's not bad.
And it was like a commuter school, so it is what it is. So that was an easier path for me. And then moving back home was easy for me. I was chilling because I have cool parents. Sorry for you people out here in these streets struggling.
Dang, Chanel.
Y'all are you pay your rent to survive.
Yeah.
Because if you go back home, it's going to be a problem. Me, I'm chilling. So, yeah, so I spent those 2 years at home, and then I spent my master's degree at home, and then I moved for my PhD program, and I moved all the way to Texas.
Houston, Texas, baby.
Oh, no.
So, funny enough, we both kind of did the same move. I don't know. Do you want to do this in chronological order? Because I was in Houston before you were.
Yeah. Did you live anywhere else before you went to Houston?
Do internships count?
Why not?
So yes, then I lived in Portland, Oregon. For I guess you could total it 9 months. I did 3 internships in Portland, Oregon between the years of 2016 to 2018. So I was there in the summer of 2016, the summer of 2017, and the summer of 2018. Each time I lived in a completely different part of Oregon, but all within the same area of the company that I was interning with, which was Intel. I think for me, going and living in Portland truly felt like the first time moving out, only because I went to school in the same place that I lived. So kind of like you, I could have technically commuted if I wanted. I didn't want to, mainly because one, commuting, I'm not a big driver. So I don't really like the idea of being in the car for 30 to 45 minutes. And also because a lot of people would do homework together late at night. So I wouldn't be done with school until 11 p.m. And the idea of having to drive 45 minutes at 11 p.m. just to be back the next morning at 7 a.m. seemed like disgusting. Mm-hmm. So all that to say is, because my parents were so close, it felt as though I hadn't really moved out yet because they could come whenever they wanted. So the first time I felt like I truly moved was when I did my first internship in Portland, because the quickest my parents could get to me was 3 hours, but they had to get on a plane. Mm-hmm. And they had to pay and spend a couple $100s, which is not anything similar to getting into your car and driving 45 minutes.
Yep.
At that time, it was the summer after my sophomore year, I got my first credit card. My dad started teaching me about credit. So I started paying rent for credit and getting an understanding of what it's like to have credit and what credit gets you. I had to furnish my apartment. I had to get pots and pans. I had to more actively cook for myself because I depended a lot on the dorm cafeteria. I now actually had to make my own meals. And I had to be responsible. I was getting a paycheck, or I guess a more substantial paycheck. And I had to put that and make sure I could pay for Portland rent. Make sure I could pay for groceries every single week. Make sure I could pay for my electricity bill. And then also, at the time, the first time I went, I wasn't sure when I was going to be in Portland again. So make sure I could explore. And I truly believe my first internships and the internships that progressed afterwards really instilled in me responsibility. Just because I had to do it more seriously. That's what I did first. I would just combine them all up into one thing. I don't really believe there was anything special about each one of these experiences. I did learn the type of people that I can live with. There was a consistency between each and every single one of my roommates. For the audience out there, I want you to think long and hard what you think the commonality is. Think about what the podcast is about, and then think about the type of people that I may or may not have been able to bond with. And I'm sure y'all can put 2 and 2 together. So I learned the type of people I could live with, and from there I was able to dictate, okay, again, I had my own bathroom. That was a set thing. But I figured out that I wasn't the one who was crazy in a lot of my roommate situations. It was this differencing of cultures and opinions. Mm-hmm. And that helped project me into graduate school, where I moved to Houston, Texas, August of 2018.
And I moved November of 2020.
COVID.
Because, yeah, I feel like our moving experiences were a little bit different.
Vastly different. So vastly different.
Woo!
That's crazy. Should I start then about my moving experience?
You can go ahead and start.
Okay. So the crazy thing about my moving experience is I'm going to start from when I graduated college. So I graduated college May of 2018. And immediately after I graduated college, I went to South Korea. And the reason why it's important to mention that I went to South Korea is because after it was like my vacation, whatever, but right after I had a internship in Portland, my last internship the summer of 2018, and from that internship in Portland, I was going straight to Houston. So I packed my entire life after I graduated, and I took my entire life with me to Korea. So I had extra luggage. I think I was able to get away with not having to take one of my bags because I had a 1 to 2 day stopover in Arizona before going to Portland. But I took majority of my life with me to South Korea because there's no point for me to pack all of my clothes away and then pack an extra suitcase just to go for a 2-week trip. So I brought a big piece of luggage with all of my clothes to South Korea. Spent 2 weeks in South Korea, came home for 2 days, and then I moved to Portland, was in Portland for 3 months, and the last day of my internship was a Friday. I left Sunday or Monday, and I was in Houston, Texas, a Monday in August with all of my stuff. So that already was crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's like, why am I lugging my entire life out of the country and then into different states? I will say the moving experience after that was pretty okay. My parents ended up meeting me. They flew a different flight, I think. I think my flight was earlier in the day, or theirs was earlier. Somebody just got to the airport before the other person. So we met at the airport, and then we drove to. Are we naming the school, Chanel, that we went?
Why not?
Okay, so we went to Rice University in Houston, Texas. Or at the time, I was the only one there. So I went with my parents to Rice University, to where I went to one of the graduate apartments, and immediately I was met with one of the RAs who was like, "Hi, welcome to Rice. Congratulations, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this was a doctorate program." And so we talk about the fact that it's like, this is a great place to be for the next 5 years of your life, trying to hype me up and get me excited, you know. Quit laughing. And so I got the keys. The nice thing about the the graduate housing was it was fully furnished. So pretty much me coming in with my suitcases was all I really needed. I ended up having to go get sheets and stuff, and I got a couple pots and pans, but that's where Ross came in play, and it was super easy. It was seamless, I believe. I will say the moving in process for my first year was a highlight, only because it was the least stressful. I moved in a couple weeks earlier than everybody else, just because, again, internship ended. There was no point in me extending my lease for a couple of weeks for no reason. I wasn't getting paid anymore, so I don't want to pay rent for a place, especially because I would have to pay rent in Houston. And also, it didn't make any sense to me to fly from Portland to Arizona and then Arizona to Houston when I can just buy a ticket from Portland to Houston. Mind you, I had to pay for all these flights. So all this flying around and stuff was everything I had to pay for. So I didn't have the money to even buy another flight. Mm-hmm. I would have to go to Houston. So I did come in a little bit before everybody else. There wasn't that much of a rush, so I could take my time to use the elevators, to like, when we did get some things to like shop with or to furnish with, to take them upstairs, to move my luggage. I could unpack, and my parents left, and it was again that same euphoric feeling of freedom. After I was just like, wow, I'm doing this thing. I'm getting an advanced degree. I'm now living in Houston, Texas, and I have my own new space. I'm about to start an amazing journey. Wow. Is what I thought in 2018.
Yeah, that's what you thought.
So that's
a story for another day, though. Our experience at Rice is a story for another day.
But I will say, just the housing situation, it was kind of nice. I wanted to just add, it was nice that I didn't have to look for a place to live, because that was the part that was daunting. Was I didn't know what Texas was like, or what Houston was like. So I was really glad that I could move into campus housing that was run by the school, because I didn't want to deal with the issue of getting scammed or whatever by people, because they see, oh, you're young. I was 21. You're young. You're naive. Come on. We'll get you this place. We're going to charge you an arm and a leg, but it's going to be like rats and roaches and whatnot.
Must be nice. Must be nice.
It must be nice.
Now, my experience, first of all, it was, so I got accepted to Rice in 2020. Wow. A beautiful year where nothing bad happened.
COVID.
Yeah, we had the world shut down in like March.
Yeah.
I got my acceptance.
Which is so funny.
Yeah.
Because you came to visit the school in February.
And everything was normal.
Which is, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
That it's just like 1 month after you came to visit the school.
The world shut down.
It was like, oh, everything's ending. Everything's
you see,
closing.
I should have took that as a bad omen, shouldn't I? But
hindsight 2020.
Yeah, 2020, literally.
Oh, that is literally.
So I decided to go to Rice, and the pandemic was happening, so we had no idea what was going to happen when it came time for school to start, right? So I was just planning on going to my program virtually for the first semester, because I'm like, there's a pandemic going on. Nobody even wanted to travel at that time, let alone move to a whole new place and then have to go to school. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to chill here. After some time, the virtual thing really wasn't working because I was in some like really difficult courses, and like pretty much everybody who hasn't taken that course before in their undergrad was struggling. So very difficult course that we normally, you're not even supposed to take it your first semester, but the department chair didn't sign some paperwork, so we had to do it that semester. Love that for me.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I was straight struggling. My mom also had some surgery. She had full hip replacements.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, at the age of like 50. So I was helping her out with that and all that crap. So it was just really stressful time. And so I decided, like, okay, let me just move down there. I'm going to have to move anyways. But let me just move down there so I can be around everything, and then I can work with people in person, which typically is easier when you're doing math, because it's hard to do math via Zoom. Yeah.
It's hard to do a lot of things via Zoom.
For real. And like, yeah. So, but that's a story for another day. I'm an advocate for remote work. We're moving on.
Yeah.
So, so I told my mom, hey, I'm moving. And she said, okay, let's do this. So I started researching places, and I couldn't live in the campus housing because this is November.
Full.
Everybody moves in like August, September, around then. So I'm already 2-3 months late. So I'm like, okay, let me just get my own apartment instead. So I was not out there, and I wanted to just fly in and have an apartment. Mistake. So I found an apartment locator. Apparently they're super popular in Houston. They're supposed to look and like check out places for you, suggest places for you, go and look at them, make sure they're good and all that stuff. And so I trusted my apartment locator. She selected a place. She went and saw it and the whole nine. And then I ended up signing a lease, and I was ready to go. So then we fly out there. Me and my mom fly out there. And then we go to the apartment directly from the airport. I got my life in the car, my rental car. Got the life in the rental car. And so I walk out, and the lady takes us for a tour of the place because I haven't seen it yet because I was looking at everything virtually. So we're looking at this place. There's trash on the floor. We're walking. We make it to the first apartment. My mom, we're talking to this lady, and we're sitting by the sink, and we see roaches in the sink. Roaches. And the lady talking to us is killing roaches before our eyes.
No.
Yes, she was trying to hide them.
No.
And my mom's like,
Ew.
are we not going to address the fact that there's roaches right here? And the lady was like, oh, well, yeah, it just must be this apartment. So, let me just show you a different apartment. Let me show you a different one. So then we go look at a different apartment. She shows me an apartment on the first floor with a door that is directly to the outside. No gates, no nothing. Your door faces the street where anybody could walk in.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, are you insane? This could be a young woman living alone in an apartment, and this is the one you show her. Are you smoking crack? And so the lady was like, oh, well, I can show you another one. And my mom was like, nah, I think we're good. And so we go and we talk to her, and we're like, yeah, this is not gonna work. This is not gonna work. This is not gonna happen. And then I signed the lease because I thought it was a done deal. We were good. And so luckily homegirl did us a favor, and she's like, oh, I'm just going to get you out of the lease. I'll talk to the manager. And so moral of the story is never, ever, 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 ever sign a lease without seeing the exact unit that you're going to be in.
Right.
And then number 2, always, always, always see the apartment yourself. Don't send anybody else. You need to do that crap yourself. So then me and my mom, we got back in the car and we looked at each other. And we were like, what are we going to do?
Right. Like you said, you had all your stuff.
All of my stuff. And so we were like, okay, we have 2 choices. We could stay here and try to find an apartment, or you could just come back home. And we're just going to do that. So we're like, okay, we're going to give it 1 week. We're going to stay here. We're going to search. If you find something good, if you don't find something, then we're just going back home. And so we were scouring Houston, Texas. And it took us about 3 days or so of just the whole day looking at places, driving here, driving there, walking into places, just looking at places. I think it took us about 3-4 days maybe for us to actually find an apartment. And it was a nice apartment. My closet, that was a huge... You remember, Cindy? That closet
was another bedroom.
Another bedroom. That was a nice closet.
What did you have? You had a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom?
It was technically a 1-bedroom with a den. And that den was a whole nother room. Bedroom. It was given 3 bedrooms. Yeah, 2-bedroom with a den. That's what it was giving. And so that was a super nice apartment. No roaches. I did not see a single roach.
Hallelujah.
Everybody was normal in the apartment complex. We were good. It was expensive, but it is what it is. So that was definitely a struggle moving to Houston, Texas. And then, once you move in, that's not the end of anything, because then you have to adjust to living in a new area. And Houston's a very interesting place to live.
So if moving to a new location, what do you notice? I feel as though, at least with Texas, what I notice is that roaches are awful.
The roaches. The humidity.
Oh, humidity was bad. Humidity was bad. I think that was another thing that was really funny, was people assumed because I'm coming from Arizona, I wouldn't mind the heat, but humid heat and dry heat
are 2 different things.
Wildly different things. Wildly different things. So I was dripping in sweat.
I was swimming every day. I was swimming for my life.
Yeah.
The air was thick.
Yeah.
It's so hot.
So, whew.
But Portland, what did you notice in Portland?
What I noticed in Portland was that I actually enjoyed Portland quite a lot. I think it's because Portland is so vastly different than Arizona from the perspective of Arizona is a desert, nothing grows, while Portland is known for its nature. So I got more into hiking. I looked for falls, waterfalls. That's the word I was looking for, waterfalls. Air quality was better. The fact that it was a summer and it didn't get higher than 80 degrees or something. This is the first time that I realized that not every place has an air conditioning unit and not every place has a swimming pool, because those are 2 necessities in Arizona. It's difficult to sell a house if you don't have a pool. And I believe it's against some certain code. I don't think you can sell a home in Arizona without having an AC unit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So those are things that I noticed with Portland. It just was so pretty and serene every single morning because my first internship, I'd ride my bike. I'd be kind of like riding through next to a forest. The trees grew so big. I just loved it. And there was no roaches. After your stint in Houston, Chanel, where'd you go next?
I went back home. Yeah. Yeah, I went back home and I'm here to stay. Yeah, I'm living at home. Cause I was like, first of all, I'm going back to California. I'm traumatized after living in Texas. And then number 2, being a PhD student makes you poor. So
it's true.
Yeah, I needed to get my money up. Okay. True. So yeah, I'm still living at home. Lord knows when I'll move out, but I'm chilling. I'm enjoying life right now.
Chilling like a villain. Mm-hmm. And when did you move back home?
I moved back home after Rice chewed me up and spit me back out, which was, I think, May of 2022.
Okay. So, and that's your last and final move. That's where you are currently.
Yes.
Nice. So, funny enough, I also moved to California after grad school.
Oh my gosh, did you?
I finished. I know you don't know, Chanel, which is why I'm so glad we can use this podcast as a way for me to update you on my life.
Yeah.
So I got chewed up and spit back out, but I was
They gave you the piece of paper.
Huh?
They chewed you up, spit you back out, and then threw a piece of paper on you.
Yeah, they did. And I decided because they gave me that piece of paper that I'll write it out to the end instead of leaving like you should do when you're being beaten.
Yep, beat it into submission.
Anyway, right. So I stayed until I graduated May of 2023. And afterwards, I moved to California where I started my first job. The only difference is I'm in Northern California when Chanel is in Southern California. But just to talk about this experience, so this move, I will say, is the first time that I actually had a substantial amount of money to go towards moving. So I actually had the opportunity to look at nicer places than I've ever lived before. Because all the previous places, I've lived in quote unquote luxury apartments before, but what is luxury on a graduate student salary? Mm-hmm. Right? It's just a name in title, but it's not necessarily in looks. So, and also, we're talking California here. So after I graduated, I think 2 weeks after I graduated, I flew out to Northern California where I had a dear friend, or, I guess she's all right. I don't know. But I had a friend who actually came up and looked at places with me.
Oh my gosh.
You might like her.
Yeah, who was that friend? Her name escapes me. Yeah.
Her name is escaping me.
Just don't know who that was.
She was born and raised in California, and when I was talking to her about places to look into, she was letting me know some tips and tricks, and I was getting overwhelmed as you do when you are packing up and moving, and you don't know anything about the new area. She offered to meet me in Northern California and to help me try to find a place to live. So I put together a list of 21 apartments. We were there for 5 days, y'all. We were there for 5 days. And I had 21 apartments spanning the East Bay to try to decide where I wanted to live for the foreseeable future. This is the first time in my life that I'm living in a place where I don't know the amount of time I'm going to be in this place. With grad school, I knew I was only going to be in Houston for 5 years. For college, I only knew 4 years. For internships, 3 months. Now with this full-time job, I don't know how long I'm going to be here for. So I wanted to make sure I found a place that I could tolerate, because with all of my moving back and forth, I'm tired of moving. So I wanted to find a place to stay. And that was an adventure in itself. If you haven't guessed, y'all, the person that came with me was Chanel. I'm just gonna, it's just stupid now to just be like, so the person came with me. Chanel and I, we're here in the Bay. The issue was the time that we came, it was during the graduation season of Berkeley and
all the other SF schools. State, all of them.
All the other SF schools. So while I wanted to find a place in East Bay, we ended up having to stay in San Francisco and commute every single day over the bridge to be able to go find apartments. So that was just something on top of all of the pizzazz and jazz. And then Chanel was still technically having to navigate work, still having to do meetings. So on top of us having like appointments throughout the day, we also had to make sure time was scheduled aside for Chanel to do her job duties. Mm-hmm. So it was crunch time. We did our due diligence. We had our hours for each place. I made sure that the places were within like 15 minutes of each other, if that, to ensure that by the time we finished an appointment, we can be at the next appointment within the half hour to start the next one. And I'm going to tell y'all this, in case you're not aware, California is so expensive. Woo. And the thing that sucks the most about looking for an apartment in California is you go in knowing it's expensive. You go to the website and you do a cost comparison. Just to give you guys an idea, I lived in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom in Houston. That was my condo, where with utilities, it was $1,700 a month. And I had a roommate. So I was spending, let's just say $850. I think that's $850 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,000 square feet in Houston. Coming to California, in some areas, I'm going to use a Berkeley apartment, for example. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. I think it was about 600 some square feet. The rent was over $3,000 a month. Ooh. So going into it, I already knew things were going to be expensive. I prepared. I picked places that I felt fit in my budget based off of my salary. But the issue is, by the time we got here, a lot of these places were just like, oh, you're bringing a car? That's an extra $300 a month for parking. Mm-hmm. Oh, you want this? That's an extra $100. Oh, you want that? So by the end of the day, if I plan to be spending $3,500 a month on an apartment, a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, it somehow was $4,100 by the end of the tour because of all the extra things that they didn't put on their website. It was so stressful, and I was just, I can't do it. I really even want to move here?
Yeah.
It was a pain.
That was a journey. Every day was a job. Every day was a job.
Yeah. But... And the fact that like we would have to go look at apartments and sit down and build a budget around some of these apartments just because it wasn't what I was initially expecting. For the place that I'm currently at, I love my spot, but when we saw it, it was the best of the best. It was on the higher end.
Beyond the best of the best. And for some reason, those prices were not outrageous. They were like normal and reasonable for the area.
Well, yes. I mean, that's also because the unit is newer, concessions and whatever, but even still, it was higher than what I had initially anticipated. So even though this was the best, and just to let everyone know, this is like above the best, but all the other apartments were like far below.
And still charging the same price.
Right. It wasn't even a question that I had to live here, but I wasn't sure if I could afford it. So that's where I had to take responsibility. Chanel and I had many arguments because Chanel was telling me, you can make it work. You can't go spend money frivolously, but you can make it work. And I was concerned that it wouldn't happen just because, again, I had this preconceived notion on how much money I can actually spend, but that was blown out of the water just because the Bay. I learned it's very good to ask questions, do extensive research, look into leasing agencies, whoever's owning the apartment complexes. Those set the tone for all the surprises that you're going to see. And not shocking, but a lot of these apartments that had these shock factors were all owned under the same leasing company. So it was a whole thing, but it worked out. Luckily, it worked out. I think it's due to my planning, but my last moving experience was quite stressful, only because I felt as though, in the scheme of everything, it was 2 days. We were there for a week. We were able to have a great trip, but the first 2 days were all of my favorite apartments. the ones that I thought were the creme de la creme, cream of the crop.
And we struck
so the
out.
fact that we struck out time and time and time again. The apartment that I'm in, for context, this was apartment number 8.
Yeah.
We saw 8, maybe 9, or like we saw 6, maybe 7 apartments before this one.
And this one blew them all out of the water. So it was rough. We got lucky.
It was crazy. It was so lucky because even though this didn't even reach my top choices initially, it was after I went back to look at leasing agencies that I realized that people talk very highly about this place that I got pushed up higher. But it wasn't even a place that I was even considering. The website seemed subpar to me, in my opinion. But then, the reviews sold me. And to your point again, Chanel, it is very important to come see a place in person because
a lot of those nice apartments online are a completely different thing in person. They just hire people to take good photos. That's it.
Yeah. So that was my last moving experience. I haven't been back home since I was 17. I officially moved out in 17, and I've just been nomadic ever since.
Vibing.
But
let me tell you, Cindy, and the rest of the audience about my last moving experience. Mm-hmm. So, coincidentally, I also flew out to the Bay and, I got my keys to my apartment, maybe in the same apartment complex and exact apartment that Cindy was going into. Yeah, I got the keys and then I paid the deposit with Cindy's money because she's just so nice. She gave me the money for the apartment. So I paid the first and last and whatever else you have to pay when you're first going into an apartment. And then, I just went in there and, I sent Cindy a bunch of pictures because, she just wanted to see my luxury apartment that I got. And so... I was vibing. I went ahead and bought some furniture and, was setting up my space. And then all of a sudden, Cindy comes out of nowhere, like 2-3 days later, attacks me, takes my keys.
Okay. I was allowing you up until the attacking. This is ridiculous. Also, what?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Anyways, Chanel's a homie. Because of how my company was working, the time that my lease started was 2 days before I could actually move because my company was providing me with movers. So I had to be there to open the door for them to pack up all of my stuff. So I needed to be in Texas up until the 26th of June. And my lease started at my apartment the 24th of June. So yes, I sent all of my money, the first and last, whatever, my deposit. Chanel took it, dropped it off, got the keys, helped me move in, but it's my apartment.
But I have a
Chanel
room.
Just frequents.
I have a room.
Chanel frequents. It's true.
I live there part-time. So, if you had to come up with one sentence to describe moving to somebody else or like give someone advice on moving, what would you say?
Ooh. Can I do separate? So one sentence about moving and then advice that I give?
Yes.
So I would say one sentence that I think would define moving is, or it's going to be cliche, but moving is an adventure. Just because you never know what you're going to get at the end of the journey. And that can be from the perspective of you find a great place, but you have bad roommates. Or you think you've seen a good place, but it's roach infested.
Oh, God.
So that's what I would say is my sentence. And my advice is research everything. And however you want to research, do your research. But when you're picking a place, do your due diligence to make sure it's a place that you like. And then when you're picking roommates, do your due diligence that you vibe. Because we couldn't get into it today. I've had such terrible roommate stories. It's so bad, traumatic. Even it's crazy that I was able to find a good roommate in my 3rd to 5th year of my PhD, and the fact that I can live with other people. Again, there's a commonality between who are my good roommates and my bad roommates, but I've just had terribly traumatic roommate experiences. So I would say you just need to look into people, take the time, talk to people who know them, or talk to people who know people who know people who know them, because people are able to hide their true personality in the first couple of like sessions and meeting them, but they can't hide the personality of their entire life. So someone who knows them will let you know this person is crazy, don't live with them. And I wish I did that due diligence so I wouldn't have these traumatic experiences, as well as the fact I wouldn't have been in such bad housing situations. Because one of my apartments dealt with constant break-ins where packages were getting stolen, people's apartments were getting broken into, and their cars, even though it was listed as a luxury apartment, you know?
Always.
So that's what I would say.
Yes, for me, I would say moving is a hassle. Mm-hmm. But I guess the reward of living in a good place is worth it. And then as for advice, go in person. Like, give it a week. Fly out there. Yep. Spend the money on a plane ticket. Spend the money on a hotel. And go out there. Look in person. They are scammers. These hoes are scammers. They're scheming and scamming, and they will take one look at you, say, "Oh, you look like a lollipop," and lick you. Okay? So get it together.
I learned new stuff about your movie experiences today, Chanel.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think we might have discussed it, but I don't remember. I don't remember the fact that you did move back home at 19.
Yep.
And then, of course, the dorm stories, excuse me, I didn't know those.
Woo. Which, we could go into further detail another day.
We could. Like I said, I have stories upon stories upon stories.
Alrighty.
Anyways, this was fun.
Yes.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Is someone knocking on my door? Hello? Open the door. I'm filming a podcast right now. Goodbye.
Bye.
You want to say hi to the podcast?
No, thank you.
Okay, bye.